Picture yourself indoors, completely sheltered, as the thunderous howl of a violent storm tears through everything outside. Wind is wrenching shingles off rooftops and snapping limbs from trees that have stood for generations. And then a thought strikes you. Just hours ago, a tiny cardinal was perched quietly at your bird feeder, a creature weighing less than a handful of pocket change. Now, somewhere out there, inside a weather system powerful enough to demolish concrete buildings, where did it go? Did it survive? What backyard birds actually do when the sky falls is something most people have never considered, and the answer defies everything we assume about fragility and survival. For decades, ornithologists tracked migration and nesting behavior, but extreme weather survival remained poorly understood. Too chaotic, too fast, too small scale to study properly. Only recently, through micro-GPS trackers and advanced Doppler radar, have researchers uncovered exactly what decisions birds make in the moments before and during a violent storm. What they found is this: these tiny creatures possess an ancient, finely engineered storm defense system that outperforms anything human technology has built. The first thing to understand is that birds are never caught off guard. Long before you notice a darkening sky or feel the first raindrop, the birds already know. Deep within their inner ear, birds carry a specialized structure that functions as a biological barometer, capable of detecting microscopic drops in atmospheric pressure, shifts so subtle that no human could perceive them without instrumentation. The moment pressure begins to fall at the rate associated with a severe storm, an alarm ignites through their nervous system. This is why, in the hours before a major storm, your bird feeders explode into what looks like frantic chaos. Chickadees, finches, sparrows, they are not simply eating. They are loading fuel, filling their reserves, the way a traveler stocks supplies before a long and uncertain road. A small songbird must consume enough high-fat calories to sustain a hyperfast metabolism through potentially days of complete fasting. Without that fat reserve, the real danger is not hypothermia or being hurled from a branch. It is starvation, silent, internal, invisible. Once the rain arrives and the wind reaches dangerous speeds, the survival strategy shifts entirely. The instinct most people assume birds follow, fly away, outrun the storm, is physically impossible for most backyard species. A house sparrow cannot outfly a system stretching hundreds of miles, so instead, they do something far more intelligent. They disappear into plain sight. Biologists call these sheltering locations microhabitats, the deepest interior of a dense evergreen, the thickest section of a hedge, the hollow cavity inside a dead oak. Birds seek the leeward face of a structure, the side completely shielded from the driving wind, and they press themselves in. Once positioned, they engage a mechanism built directly into their anatomy. A bird's foot is engineered with a passive tendon locking system. The moment a bird crouches and grips a branch, the tendons in its leg automatically clench tight around the wood. This requires zero muscular effort to maintain. The bird is mechanically fastened to the branch, locked in place like a bolt drawn tight. A storm can whip the tree violently back and forth for hours, and the bird remains attached not through strength or struggle, but through pure structural engineering. It simply rides out the chaos. The next challenge is the cold and the rain. Bird feathers are not passive insulation. They are an active, responsive system. During a storm, a bird activates a gland near the base of its tail, called the uropygial gland, which secretes a specialized waterproofing oil. Using its beak, the bird methodically distributes this oil across every layer of feathers, building a surface that sheds water almost completely on contact. Rain lands and rolls away. The skin beneath stays dry. Simultaneously, the bird puffs its feathers outward, trapping a layer of warm air directly against its body. This dramatically increases the bird's apparent size. A sparrow in a storm looks almost twice its calm weather self. But more importantly, it constructs a personal thermal shield, a pocket of warmth the storm cannot reach. Core temperature stays regulated even as the surrounding air turns hostile. Grip locked, body waterproofed, heat sealed in, the bird simply waits. Not every species hunkers down and hides. Larger birds, coastal gulls, terns, and pelicans employ a strategy so extreme it looks reckless. Radar surveillance of major hurricanes has repeatedly captured something remarkable: massive flocks flying directly into the eye of the storm. Inside a hurricane's eye, conditions are eerily calm. Clear skies, still air, a column of quiet, surrounded by a rotating wall of catastrophic wind. Birds that reach the eye are effectively held within it. As the hurricane advances, they advance with it, carried hundreds of miles inside a traveling cylinder of stillness, unable to exit through the deadly eye walls encircling them. When the storm finally weakens and dissolves, these birds are deposited far beyond their normal range, exhausted, disoriented, stranded in entirely unfamiliar landscapes. It is an enormous gamble, but for a bird that cannot survive inside the eye wall, the eye is the only viable refuge. For hummingbirds, none of these strategies are sufficient. A hummingbird's metabolism operates at a pace that strains comprehension. Their hearts beat over 1,000 times per minute at peak activity. They require continuous nectar intake to sustain that rate. A multi-day storm that eliminates access to flowers is not an inconvenience. It is a death sentence within hours. To endure it, hummingbirds enter torpor, a physiological state that sits in the narrow corridor between sleep and hibernation. The bird hangs upside down from a branch, lowers its body temperature dramatically, sometimes to within a few degrees of the surrounding air, and drops its heart rate from over 1,000 beats per minute down to fewer than 50. Breathing slows to near imperceptible. To any observer, the bird appears completely lifeless, like a small ornament forgotten on a branch. It is not dead. It has paused itself, suspended its own life processes to the bare minimum required to survive, and it will hold that state until light and warmth return. When conditions shift, the hummingbird's body restarts, heart rate climbing, temperature rising, eyes opening, and it lifts off as though nothing happened. When the storm finally breaks and sunlight returns, the surviving birds face one final danger. They emerge from their sheltering spots completely depleted. Fat reserves are exhausted, and the landscape around them has been scoured. Seeds scattered by wind, insects washed away, natural food caches destroyed. The birds that successfully weathered the storm are now running a race against starvation in a temporarily barren world. This is the moment your bird feeder becomes genuinely critical. Filling it immediately after a major storm delivers emergency calories to survivors who have nothing left in reserve. The wind has stopped, but the starvation clock ticks louder than ever. The next time you watch the sky turn dark and hear the wind begin to build, you will know what is unfolding beyond your window. Hidden in the hedges, locked onto branches inside thrashing trees, hanging motionless and cold from unseen perches, an entire community of survivors is executing a system refined across millions of years. They do not panic. They prepare, they lock on, and they wait for the light to return. That cardinal will almost certainly be back at your feeder tomorrow. If you want to keep uncovering the hidden science happening right in your own backyard, subscribe and stay curious.